It's Kathy again, and I would like to talk about the Mendelssohn Scherzo some more. Last time I spoke about evenness of fingers. I'm going to continue that topic. There is another really, I think, effective way of practicing this to make sure that your fingers are smooth. We talked last time about using various wood shedding techniques, both slurred and double tongued. This one involves a metronome. If you were to turn your metronome on a speed maybe at dotted quarter equals 69, and just play normally and get used to that tempo, that would be the first step. Etc. One thing you can do to really trick your brain is to move the metronome click over by an eighth note. So in this case, I'm putting the metronome on the second eighth note of each measure. What you'll find there is that things may not feel as stable as they did before. You might notice some instability where you didn't, or places that you need to address. I would recommend playing it this way many times. The final variation of this is putting the metronome on the third eighth note of every measure. Sometimes it takes a fair amount of practice to get used to that. And I will tell you what's helpful is to really make sure that you know exactly where the metronome should click in each measure. When that all feels comfortable, the next step would be to move the metronome speed up. So now I'm at 76, putting the metronome on the second eighth of each measure. When you get more or less up to tempo, this can become super helpful with figuring out exactly how much time you have to breathe. Most of us take a little bit too long to breathe and end up compressing the measures that have eighth note, breath, and 4/16 notes. With the metronome, clicking on beat 2, it will show you exactly how much time you have to breathe. So, in other words, the next step would be to move the metronome up gradually to your audition tempo speed, 84 to 88 max, and make sure that you can play the excerpt with control with the metronome beating in different parts of each measure. This brings me to my next point, which is breathing. A lot of us have a hard time breathing. I find it difficult to play this excerpt up to tempo, to not be late on the second eighth note after the breaths, and to be relatively comfortable getting to the end without needing to stop to take a breath. My solution for that is to practice this from backwards, from the end forward, in other words. So the first thing I would do is make sure that when I play up to tempo, I feel super comfortable if I start 4 measures before cue. And I do. If I then go back to my last breath before that, so that is 8 measures after P, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 measures after P, and play with a big breath from there to the end, I'd want to make sure that I feel comfortable with taking that one catch breath and getting to the end. So I'm going to start with my very large breath. If that feels more or less comfortable, then you would move backwards from that 9 before P to start. If that doesn't feel comfortable, then maybe you want to move to start somewhere between P and Q and build up some endurance. The other thing that you can do is work on your catch breath. I find that I need to really anticipate that breath coming. I need to be thinking 2 measures before each catch breath about the fact that I'm going to be ready to inhale quickly and still make sure that my tongue is forward so that I'm not late on the second eighth of each measure. In order to practice catch breaths, it can be pretty annoying to have to start way back and then take all that time just to get to the point where you're kind of running out of air and practicing catch breath. So I tend to blow all my air out and then play 2 measures before my catch breath to mimic what I might feel like at that point. Shh. practice that little bit over and over again, starting with less air than I normally would. If you feel then that you can play those two last sections relatively comfortably, starting with a full tank of air and then taking one catch breath, it's time to practice taking the second catch breath. What you might want to do is start, say, 5 measures after P and play and practice those 2 catch breaths and get to the end. If that's feeling good, you can move closer to P, 4 measures after P, 3 measures after P, etc., until you're all the way to 1 measure before P. If breathing in this excerpt has been really hard for you, you need to remember a couple of super important things. You need to make sure the quality of your sound is pure and that you're not wasting air by having a fuzzy sound. The best way to practice this is under the slur with a lot of focus. Another reason you may be running out of air is because you're playing either too slowly or your finger-tongue coordination is causing you to waste air. The best way to practice this is to practice double tongue scales. Another reason you might be running out of air is because you're playing too loudly. I don't think this excerpt needs to be played loudly, and I think the crescendos that are marked can be very slight. Another reason you might be running out of air is because you're not taking in enough air at the beginning. There are lots of ways to practice taking a really great breath. One of them is to do a finger breath, in which I put this part of my hand against my lips, and you want to hear a very low kind of groaning sound when you take the breath in. The louder, the better. You'll feel like you really are filling up very deeply in your lungs. And another thing that I like to do is to carefully take off your head joint, cover all the keys of your flute, and breathe in. Both of these techniques should show you what a really great quality breath looks like. So I hope that's helpful in terms of practicing scherzo, and I hope you have good luck with that. And as always, feel free to contact me. Thank you.